Okay, so we should be going live right now on YouTube and Facebook. So welcome everybody here on Zoom and also those joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to take a couple of minutes and read a passage of the Bible, and then we're going to take some time to pray. So let me see. So for those listening online, if you want to find out more about Eastside Baptist Church, visit us on the web at joinebc.com. And if you haven't joined the new, shameless plug here, so if you haven't joined the new study on Sunday mornings, where we're talking about dispensationalism, there's still time. So the class will that class will help you understand God's purpose and promises for his people throughout history and today going forward. So definitely you'll want to join that if you haven't joined that already. So tonight we're going to read another psalm before spending some time in prayer. So we're going to read Psalm 77 this evening. And it's another psalm of Asaph. And if you remember, we talked about Asaph before. Let me get myself moved out of the way there. There we go. Okay, so if you remember Asaph, he was a contemporary of David. Matter of fact, he served under David, and he was he was the leader of the musicians. So the people who did music for the king or for Israel, that's who Asaph was. And so some of the psalms were written by Asaph, and this is one of them. He had actually a number of psalms that he wrote, and this is one of them, Psalm 77. So it says, for the director of music, for Jeduthun of Asaph, a psalm. And that's the heading that got put onto this psalm, but that's not part of the inspiration, but it's got tied on there. Kind of give us a little bit of information about where this psalm came from and information about the psalm. So let's read through Psalm 77 together this evening. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeem your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters. though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. And that is Psalm 77. There's some interesting things there. I'm going to back up and kind of touch on just a couple of things. But that was a psalm of Asaph. And if we remember, actually, let's go back through here. So we have a habit, and it's not new, but it's a habit of we go to God when we have trouble. And this is one of those where Asaph is saying it's a song, and it's to help the people of Israel remember that, we're crying out to God because we need help. Crying out to God to hear me. And when we're in our distress, when we're in trouble, when we need help, that's the time that we forget all of the things that God has already done for us. And it's a time where we think that we're all alone, when we are when we're in distress, and we think that that's when we need help, and we're in distress, and lots of times we forget what God has already done for us. And so it goes through here, and it says, I remembered you and I groaned, I meditate, my spirit grew faint. On that idea that I need help, I'm in trouble. And then he says, what we often do is we think the Lord is not taking care of us. Will the Lord reject us forever? Will he not find favor on us? We think that we're alone, and we're needing this help, and we think that God is not taking care of us, and we think that he's not being merciful, and we think that he's withholding. And here, as he is in anger withheld his compassion, we don't understand why we're in such distress, and why God isn't solving my problem, why God isn't solving my problem now. And that's typical. We all do that. And matter of fact, we don't do that just with God. We do it with our spouses. We do it with our friends. When we're not happy, when things are going difficult times, we start thinking of all of the negative things, all the things that are bad, and we think that things have been miserable for a long time and they're going to stay miserable, and that's where we get caught. But listen to what the psalmist did here. He stops with that line of thinking of God has forsaken me, and he stops, and then he says, then I thought. He backs up and he says, wait a minute. I'm going to remember the years when God stretched out his right hand, when God was taking care of me. I'm going to remember what God did for us. I'm going to remember all the miracles that God did for us for so long. And I'm going to remember what he's done for us, and I'm going to meditate on what he's done. And we can take that not just for, we need to remember what God has done for us, even when we're in trouble, but we can do that with our spouses and our friends. We need to back up, and we need to say, wait a minute, what is the most important thing to remember? Because we can think on the negative things, or we can remember all of the good things. And I can tell you that if we choose, like the psalmist did here, if we choose to focus on the good, if we choose to focus on the years that our spouses have been good to us, and all of the things that they've done for us, that we're going to have a much better relationship. And here, when we remember what God has done for us, we're going to remember that, wait a minute, God has done so much for us. Our friends have done so much for us. Our spouses, people have done so much for us. God has done so much for us. And we can look on the negative side, or we can look on the positive side. And here's just a really good reminder that the psalmist says, wait a minute, then I thought, I'm going to focus on the good things. I'm going to focus on all these things God has done for me, for us. And then he goes on to say, your ways, God, are holy. There's no other God that is great as our God. Our God performs miracles. Our God has redeemed us as a people. And then he ends with this reminder that, if we look back and we go, God has led his people from when he chose his people. And here we're talking about Israel, but we can bring that even to us in the church. And we can even see that as we've been without a pastor for a long time. It's easy to look back and say, oh, wasn't God working in that whole process of us changing pastors and getting a new pastor? And sometimes during the process, it was a little bit painful and a little bit ugly, but wasn't God leading in those? And sometimes looking back at those things, it reminds us that no, God has been gracious to us. God has been leading us. God has been taking care of us, even in those times where we didn't remember that he was leading us, that he was taking care of us. It wasn't quite as obvious, but now that we can look back and we can say, oh, yes, he really was helping us through as we were looking for a pastor and as we've been kind of going through this time as a church. And here the psalmist was doing the same thing. And in this song for Israel, he was saying, if we look back at what God has done, we know that God, you have led your people like a flock. And you did that even back from when Israel was being formed as a nation by the hand of Moses and Aaron, that our God is a good God. Just a quick reminder from this psalm of Asaph, Psalm 77. And next, we're going to go into a time of sharing prayer requests and taking time to pray. So if you're watching online and want to share a prayer request, visit our website at joinebc.com and click the contact button. Next, we'll give Brian a minute to end the live stream feed on YouTube and the public Facebook page, and then we will go into a time of prayer requests here and sharing the time of prayer.